do a little reading.
Aw, Mom.
It's one of my favorites.
Isn't this for gays?
What Is It to You is a series that screams queer. What franchise or series do you look at screams to you it's LGBTQ and I know it? One that you know other LGBTQ people flock to and feel a sense of safety and home. A place where they can always love regardless. A franchise that may have little or no LGBTQ representation at first, but when you look deeper you see nothing but a beautiful rainbow. A celebration of what you are, and the series that will hug you tight knowing you are safe. Well, in the year of 2024, there's no doubting the power and grasp that fandoms and subcultures have on members of the LGBTQ community today, with me, a gay man, being a major piece of evidence to it. I'm kind of in a lot of fandoms already, wow. It ranges from making it their fashion wear to their pride flags, or sometimes collecting and making a shrine out of it, and even marrying the character. We just have to shout out Randy Marsh, Lesbian, on Twitter. We love and cherish them. They're so awesome. We love them. Like, they're the best South Park character, honorary, sort of. We have all seen the many fandoms that LGBTQ people have latched onto. There's the typical ones like Steven Universe and Undertale, or there's the rare breed like Toho and Shin Megami Tensei. There's plenty more like Star Trek, Marvel Comics, Sonic, hey, I made a video on that, FNAF, Magic the Gathering, Final Fantasy. Oh, this is a call out for Final Fantasy fans. As someone who has played literally 16, 2, and 7 in the span of 1 week, and by that I mean I booted up my old 7 save file, which I was just at the part where they were about to fight the big monster with Hojo and all that. Please play more Final Fantasy games other than 14. Like, I know it's probably hard, but I'm currently playing through 4, and Cecil's story is really good. 10 is a classic. 16 is good. Get a PS5. 15 isn't that bad. It's Yaoi boys. Kingdom Hearts. Look, I know you guys are waiting for Kingdom Hearts 4, but maybe pick up a Final Fantasy game. I recommend starting with 14, you know, just to get the free trial and try it. If not, then move on to the Pixel remasters. Just don't get the physical copies because they're kind of expensive, and I was gonna get from Play Asia, but then I was like, I already have it on my Steam, and I'm currently playing through 4. Cecil's story is really good. Final Fantasy 10 is a classic. I played through some of 12, but I need to play more of it. Persona. Guys, please play Shin Megami Tensei. I know they've been telling you this. I know, like, you know, all that drama. But to be honest, I've been also replaying through 3, and I'm probably going to pick up 5 again because, you know, 5 Vengeance is coming out. You guys should really try it. Yes, it is hard, but I know Nocturne, the HD remaster, has a merciful version just to get the feeling. Or try getting some of, like, the 3DS ones, like Devil Survivor. Devil Survivor was my first, and I really enjoyed Devil Survivor for its Fire Emblem, like, gameplay. You know, the strategy RPG. I'm also planning on trying to pick up the Demi-Kid series because the Demi-Kids look interesting, and now that I got my GBA emulator booted up, I'm really excited and just to see. And for me, that's all of these franchises. Have you guys ever been interested in reading other Weekly Shonen Jump series? Because I've been reading Fuma no Kojiro. I started it like on Easter. It's not bad. I actually really like its old quirky Shonen Jump vibes because, you know, I love Weekly Shonen Jump. However, to me, there's one franchise that slipped through the cracks of time completely. One that is older than Disney itself, but lacks the financial power to keep it mainstream. One that's beloved by its people like Doctor Who, but is only seen among the older generations, being seen as a relic rather than a beloved franchise. One that's beloved by still many alive, but only at surface value, and not for what it truly has underneath. And that franchise is the Oz franchise. If you are an American or a film/Broadway enthusiast or a literature enthusiast, there's no denying the legacy of The Wizard of Oz and the Oz books. Whether it's catching reruns during the holiday season, listening to the soundtrack of its many Broadway musicals, or even referencing it, the reach of The Wizard of Oz is one not to be underestimated. Everyone knows the story. A young Kansas girl named Dorothy whisked away into the magical land called Oz, and she goes on an adventure with a brainless scarecrow, the heartless Tinman, and the cowardly lion. After dumping water, she gets to go There's No Place Like Home, and voila, she's back. Or if you got the Mad TV ending, you see Tin Man's gay lover.
I just had the most insane Judy Garland dream.
However, that's the bare minimum, and that's kind of expected but also disappointing. The Oz franchise is one that's more than the 1939 film. There's 14 mainline books, several spin-offs and or unofficial continuations, retellings, dramas, movies, and that one arcade machine that haunts you whenever you're at the arcade in the East Coast, the one that goes and is really loud when you're trying to play the other games in the arcade. The Wizard of Oz as a franchise is one that never gets as much love and care as other literature or media franchises, despite being one of the first ones in the 20th to 21st century, not to mention for how very gay it is. Did you also know they had an RPG on the Nintendo DS called Beyond the Yellow Brick Road? It was made by the same people who made Wild Arms. While I'm gonna be honest, Wild Arms is kind of basic, it has its merits for a PS1 RPG, especially when it was competing against a lot of juggernauts such as Final Fantasy 7 and 8. So I have to give it props where it's due, and the DS is really interesting gameplay-wise, and you gotta try it for yourself. If there's one thing that should be known point blank, whether it's in the LGBTQ community or in the reading community, you guys have an official name for that, is that The Wizard of Oz is a staple in gay culture. The answer is kind of like any other fandom spaces. Fandoms online have become haven for LGBTQ people. According to Brianna Dim in the article Transformative Spaces, How Fandom Creates Communities of Support, fandom is also unique in that all that LGBTQ identity work is situated within the stories about popular characters. Where the participants worried about being seen going to an LGBTQ community center, they never had to fear that they would accidentally be outed by visiting a fanfiction site or chatting about their favorite show in a fandom chat room. Yet at the same time, these were spaces where participants could talk to other people about what it meant to identify as LGBTQ, to read about characters navigating those same struggles participants were facing in their offline lives. Stories became a community resource, and their authors' mentors helped guide readers through the coming out process. What this quote shows is that LGBTQ people find great safety in media and what we consume. We see value in our hobbies and our identity, and we want to express ourselves through such, a way that most of us can in real life. And this goes for the Oz franchise. But little did anyone know, Oz was already comforting. The Oz fandom is also one of the queerest fandoms I've seen and been in. Everyone is so sweet and either gushing about ships and how gay it is. In fact, the only fan base that rivals such gayness, in my opinion, is the Sonic fandom. And I made a video about the Sonic fandom and Sonato, well, mostly Sonato. So now we have to figure out the debate, the battle between which is the gayest fandom I've been in, Sonic or Wizard of Oz. The battle between the gayest fandom in history and the gayest fandom of today was about to commence. The Wizard of Oz quickly stood proud, and with this treasure I summoned the silver shoes and magic belt, cursed weapons. The Sonic fandom quickly knew the signs of a fraud and used domain expansion, Space Colony Arc. Just as the Sonic fandom said, "Stand proud, lion, you have courage," and "Stand proud, hungry tiger, you have willpower," the one who left it all behind, and its overwhelming fan fiction, the Sonato fandom, emerged in the domain. The Sonato fandom asked,
"Are you a friend of Dorothy because you're a gay man? Or are you a gay man because you're a friend of Dorothy?"
In response to this Black Flash lesbian eraser, the Gelphie fandom entered the domain because throughout the one short day in the western sky, she alone is the wicked one. The Wizard of Oz fandom quickly asked,
"Who would win, you or Sonato?"
If they get a game called Sonic X Shadow Generations, they might cause me a little trouble.
But would you lose?
Nah, I'd defy gravity.
Anyway, shouldn't we get back on topic?
"Oh yeah, my good friend Sally Pryde Drag is also here to help me. She's gonna have another part down the line, so wait on her, but yes, she can one-shot Sukuna, okay?" What goal does this video aim to accomplish with the Wizard of Oz franchise and its queerness? A. Look at the books and find queerness or queer-coded themes as why LGBTQ people love the content in the books and media. I'm including Wicked, we'll get to that. B. What impact historically that the Wizard of Oz had on the LGBTQ community. And C. Reflect on the future of the Oz franchise and what it means to me as a whole. It might seem like this can apply for any fandom or big franchise, but for Oz, it's unique and special because L. Frank Baum and its franchise knows what it's doing. If there's one thing that immediately separates Oz books from its competitors at the time, is how the Wizard of Oz, it's pretty progressive for the 20th century. Not only for it being LGBTQ, but its themes about gender tolerance and embracing abnormalities that were deemed queer. This not only comes from how many times they used the word queer in its classic meaning, we counted, but also because of L. Frank Baum himself. When people talk about L. Frank Baum's life, no one talks about how a major influence in Baum's life was his mother-in-law, feminist Matilda Jocelyn Gage, a suffragist who was radical for her time, and in my opinion, the woman everyone should know when it talks about early progressive movements, especially women's rights movements. Not only did she advocate for women's rights to vote, she spoke out against the church and warned about the dangers of not separating church and state. She also spoke for indigenous rights and wanting to protect and decry the cruelty inflicted upon Native Americans. To say Gage did not have an influence on Baum's writing, let alone says she hates him, that's full-on wrong. During his time writing The Wizard of Oz, Gage was an influence on Baum's work, as she not only enjoyed the whimsical and fun stories, she also encouraged Baum to write with strong female heroes. This can be analyzed with the character Ginger, who represents the suffrage movement with her revolt in the marvelous land of Oz, and leads an all-female army to take back Emerald City. Ginger is not seen as evil or malicious in the story, but a morally right woman who lacks experience and also not really knows where to act properly, but has the best interest in mind. Her goal comes to fruition in the way not expected as her army retreats, but another woman comes into power. We'll get back to her later. A second example of this is the witches and the use of Wicked as a theme in the Oz franchise. In Gage's book, Woman, Church, and State, Gage acknowledges how witchcraft, despite being a misogynist slander tool, was meant to label wise and well-educated women. She also acknowledges that in reality, magic and witchcraft are the same, but divided by misogyny. As she states, the difference between the practices of men and of women existed only in name. What was termed magic among men was called witchcraft in women. The one was rarely, the other invariably punished. This idea of wickedness being only justified in men but seen as horrible for women is captured in the Oz franchise. For example, the witches will be seen as being evil in the Oz world, but the perfect Wizard of Oz, even though he's a fraud, gets away with it dandy. This is also really prominent in Wicked. See, I told you Wicked's gonna come up. The wizard is the fraud magic hero who everyone loves, who deep down wants to convert all animals to their primitive state, only allowing humans like species to be intelligent, and an antithesis to Oz's society. Elphaba, on the other hand, is someone who rejects this idea and fight for what she believes is right, and is deemed wicked and evil for such. Wicked not only captures the dichotomy between Elphaba and the wizard, but also how a woman is seen as wicked for doing the same thing a man does, pursuing their own motives and goals, and not considering the full consequences or effect this could have on others, and not thinking things ahead. This might be all of what can happen, but I feel what represents Baum's progressive and more equality level views is hiding in plain sight, and to acknowledge such, let's look at the main protagonist and the hero everyone knows and loves, named after Baum's daughter who died at only 5 months old, Dorothy Gale. Dorothy at first glance may not be seen as progressive. I mean, in the third book, she makes a chicken change her name because it didn't sound girly. Come on now. But let's think about it, we've forgiven her. Dorothy is different from your typical storybook hero, as she was a small girl who lead a group of men, especially in contrast to the idea that men are the one who lead the woman. Dorothy's story and her character is about encouraging and uplifting other citizens of Oz and becoming their friend as a girl, being a natural-born leader. Dorothy represents the idea that women can not only be able to push for change in society, but rather girls have the magic to uplift people and use their own smarts and heart to give people their power, not by their bodies, but by their own mind and thoughts. And that's what Dorothy stands for. Baum's progressiveness in his themes and stories are clearly seen, and it's as obvious as he was pro-women's rights. As for LGBT themes, well, whether he meant it or not, there's a lot of gay stuff, like, a lot. Baum has multiple times written characters with heavy queer themes, whether it's how a character expresses themselves or how they interact with others. Baum is able to capture LGBTQ themes unintentionally while also showing amazing queerness authentically in an already queer world. Now, before we jump into the obvious targets of the gay agenda that is invading everyone's spaces and telling you to buy under Night Cis Celeste, what if I was to tell you that the most blatantly obvious gays have been hiding under your noses the whole time? That queerness is shown between the two gay men that appear in front of you for not only the majority of the book series, but the classic film, and pretty much every other adaptation. Tincrow. That's right. Is this another part where you gush about shipping? You see, I would and say yes, it is shipping, for not how really homoerotic Baum wrote them. It's obvious, like, oh my god, L. Frank Baum wrote Tincrow's interactions into 14 novels, very gay, that they make Yosuke, Sasuke look straight. Thank you, Ikichi Mishina, for ending homophobia. Please watch this video. This video is like Coco Melon to me. Alright, look, I know this is the part where everyone says they can be good friends and all that, but to be honest, in Oz, It's different, especially when you look at their interactions. Tinman and Scarecrow's interaction are seen as more tender and intimate, and it can very well be interpreted as a queer relationship. I mean the word queer, it's used a lot, and one line that sticks out to me especially is in The Marvelous Land of Oz. In the chapter, A Nickel-Plated Emperor, Tip and the gang head into the Winky County, where Tinman is the emperor. The following interaction between Tinman and Scarecrow happened.
And then the door burst open and Nick Chopper rushed into the midst and caught the Scarecrow in a close and loving embrace that creased him into many folds and wrinkles. The Scarecrow had fairly thrown himself upon the bosom of his old comrade, so surprised and delighted was he to see him again.
Even the photo has close and loving embrace. That's very, very gay. And I love it. It shows that love in the world of Oz is not strictly hetero. Love is universal, and that can include two men. Add on to the fact that the Scarecrow not only affectionately calls the Tin Woodman as Nick, his real name when he could, how he mourns the loss of Tin Woodman to the Gnome King in Ozma of Oz and then excited to see him back, i.e., or how in Glinda of Oz they share a tent. Oh, and don't worry, the Cowardly Lion is also with another loving boy, Hungry Tiger. Hungry Tiger's story is that he has to learn to control his desire to eat a baby, but wants to be a good servant and not eat a baby. What I love is how the lion and tiger benefit each other, as lion learns to stand his ground, but also acknowledge fear, like how a hungry tiger has to control their impulses, but acknowledge that they're there. They sort of complement each other, and they pretty much travel everywhere after the third book. They're together and inseparable. Now, this might seem fine and dandy, like how Slayer was hinted for season 4, but there are mostly gay couples. Is there other queer characters? Yep. The Land of Oz is indeed a queer place, as it even states.
There were all sorts of queer characters among them, but not a single one who was evil, or who possessed a selfish or violent nature. They were peaceful, kind-hearted, loving, and merry, and every inhabitant adored the beautiful girl who ruled them, and delighted to obey her every command.
And many characters can be read as LGBTQ and queer without being in a relationship. However, one character that sticks out is Ozma, and to explain, let's recap her story. In Marvelous Land of Oz, we learn about a young boy named Tip, who escapes his abusive caretaker, Mombi. In his journey, he realizes that she is actually the Princess Ozma, who was forced to become a boy and hide her true identity because of fear of the wizard losing his power over Oz. Ozma then becomes her true self and is now able to rule over Oz. A woman rules Oz. More importantly, a trans woman. Ozma's story can heavily relate to trans women's experience and their values growing up. Now, I'm not a trans girl, so I can't really explain, but luckily, I have a fellow LGBTQ YouTuber, which I already had before, but she's ready again. Now let's bring her back out. Sally Pryde Trag.
Hello all you beautiful people, I'm Sally Barbara Pryde, and I make videos about transgender related things. And today I'm going to talk to you about trans representation in the Oz books. The Oz books have an interesting perspective when it comes to gender, especially with the character of Princess Ozma. Ozma was transformed into a boy by Mombi. This enchantment on Ozma, now going by Tip, would make it so that Tip is seen as a boy by society and by themselves having no prior recollection of the events. Now on the surface, this may seem like a trans feminine story. Someone born a girl who is raised a boy by society, but was really a girl all along. However, I think the story fits better as a trans masculine story. Trans allegories can often be complicated and not have a one-to-one connection. When the truth is revealed to Tip, this is his response.
I cried Tip in amazement. Why, I'm no Princess Ozma. I'm not even a girl.
It's very clear Tip does not want this. There is pressure being put on him. Much like how trans people, we experience cisnormativity, which is societal pressure to keep us in the closet. Even other characters like the Tin Woodman are telling him it's no big deal to be a girl.
Never mind that, old chap, said the Tin Woodman soothingly. It don't hurt to be a girl, I'm told. And we will remain your faithful friends just the same. And to be honest with you, I've always considered girls nicer than boys.
This is not a trans feminine story. It is the story of a boy being turned into a girl. And what does it mean to be a boy or a girl in the Land of Oz? And no, I'm not trying to sound like Matt Walsh. Does this enchantment just change your sex and outward appearance, or does it also change your sense of self? Tip is even told that he can't go back to being a boy if he doesn't like being a girl.
Then he added hesitantly, as he turned to Glinda, I might try it for a while just to see how it seems, you know, but if I don't like being a girl, you must promise to change me into a boy again, Really, said the sorceress, that is beyond my magic. I never deal in transformations, for they are not honest, and no respectable sorceress likes to make things appear to be what they are not. Only unscrupulous witches use the art, and therefore I must ask Moby to effect your release from her charm and restore you to your proper form. It will be the last opportunity she will have to practice magic. I swear, Glinda in the books is worse than the movie.
If this enchantment were based on outward sex and appearance alone, then what's stopping Tip from transitioning? He has all this pressure placed on him to be that girl, and he eventually relents and does it because it's what's good for Oz. But as they show later in the chapter, this enchantment doesn't actually change one's sense of self.
The girl herself cast one look into Glinda's bright face, which glowed with pleasure and satisfaction, and then turned upon the others. Speaking the words with sweet diffidence, she said, I hope none of you will care less for me than you did before. I'm just the same Tip. You know, only.
And I know this is a bit controversial, but this is more of a trans-masculine story than trans-feminine story.
Thank you, Sally, for that. Honestly, I didn't expect that analysis from you, but I'm really glad you did. For me, though, I feel like Ozma is a strong story about a trans woman in an unconventional way. Instead of the idea of wanting to be a woman, it's someone who realizes that, yeah, I've been a woman, and maybe I should try to embrace it. I like how they acknowledge that, yeah, Tip is scared of this change, because that's something trans women experience before transitioning. I'm pretty sure I don't think they just go in nilly-willy. There is some fear behind it, and Tip kind of acknowledges that, as well as also the idea of the witch cursing a girl and forcing her to live as a boy. That resonates a lot with trans women, as they feel like they've been cursed in their bodies prior to transition. And that's cool. One thing we can agree on, Ozma is surely not cis. Anyway, we're gonna talk about not just Ozma, but Ozma and her relationship with Dorothy. You see, throughout the Oz books, Ozma and Dorothy have a little special relationship. Usually that are just more than good friends. Whether it's Ozma and Dorothy communicating through the magic picture, how Dorothy was able to convince Ozma to move her uncle and aunt to Oz, they're a little closer than imagined, as they do hug and talk about how they're each other's special friends. In Road to Oz, we see that, as it states that everything about Ozma attracted one, and she inspired love and the sweetest affection rather than awe or ordinary admiration. Dorothy threw her arms around her little friend and hugged and kissed her rapturously. Yeah, you can tell they're pretty much more than just that. And it's really cute because it just shows that, yeah, it's a couple that are both women and they're in love. The same book also says Dorothy thought she had never seen two prettier creatures together than these lovely maidens. But Polly, which is the child of the rainbow, which literally it stated, knew all at once her own dainty beauty could not match that of Ozma, yet was not a bit jealous because this was so. I love how it just openly shows how very gay and very lesbian Dorothy and Ozma are. And Polly, why not throw her in there? I really like it. It's unapologetically gay and it's very valid, especially for queer women who are reading this. I think it's valid and I think it's really cool that it's put in a book from over 100 years ago. Now, you might think, well, this is just writing. This isn't enough to warrant The Wizard of Oz stapling itself as the gayest franchise to ever exist. And to that, I want to say that the LGBTQ Wizard of Oz rabbit hole goes deeper than just the books. Let's go back to the movies, or even the books, especially Dorothy's interaction with characters. Dorothy accepts and welcomes everyone regardless of differences. Dorothy is someone who celebrates differences or queerness. Many gay men, as well as the other alphabet bulls, resonate with this because it shows acceptance, love, and care for us despite our differences, and this is highlighted especially with the actress Judy Garland. You see, Judy Garland is the gay icon, in my opinion. Judy was the pop star that defined all gay icons that predate her. Throughout her life, Judy's struggles can be resonated with gay men at the time, being forced to do stuff and go through trauma that no one should ever go through. This isn't to say both struggles are the same, as she experienced abuse and horrid misogyny in contrast to homophobia, but rather, it humanized Garland to the gay audience. In a world that only saw her as a model or star to perform, LGBTQ people saw her as a human that was beaten down by a world that wanted her to be perfect. She resonated with them, and their cries didn't go unheard. In an interview, Judy Garland acknowledged her homosexual fanbase and defended them.
But I'll be damned if I like to have my audience mistreated.
Not to mention, her song Over the Rainbow was such a strong theme, and even speculated that was what inspired Gilbert Baker to make the rainbow flag. Nevertheless, it also inspired many outside of Baker to adopt a rainbow, as it meant a space where we can be happy in peace. To Oz, and it's just over a rainbow. Garland was for human rights, and that included gay rights. Judy Garland deserves the world after so much she's been through in her life. Garland's legacy continued even after her death, especially with her character Dorothy, and there's a nifty little story to go with the connection between Dorothy and gay men. The story goes that in 1980, homosexual Mel Dull was discharged from the military, and in response, he told the newspaper that there was a plethora of homosexuals in the military, with the leader, a mysterious communist woman named Dorothy. And so, the military sought out to find the leader of Dorothy and commence a purge of homosexuals in the military in Michigan. However, there was no woman, as Friends of Dorothy was a euphemism they used for gay men that dated back in the 1940s and 1950s, with the Wizard of Oz movie becoming prominent. This shows Garland's extension to the gay community, as her character became a term for gay men and used to trick straight people and used as code. Nowadays, on ships, it's usually means for LGBTQ people, especially gay men. Cruise Line embraces them, especially for those that want to host discreet events for LGBTQ people on the cruise ships without fear. I would tell more, but this thing is in the way, and this is the source, but this ad is in the way, and I can't get it out. Also, my source for the Friend of Dorothy is Conduct Unbecoming, and they talked about how other purges took place, such as a circle jerk in Orlando, like that one episode of Fat Allen, who has absolutely no affiliation with Bill Cosby's lovable character, Fat Albert. What this can tell you is that Judy Garland and the character of Dorothy was a shield. Dorothy in the Land of Oz protects us. It's there to help us and defend our liveliness. Friends of Dorothy meant we can go anywhere and not be discriminated against. It meant that we deserve safety. Add on to the fact of Dorothy's presence in the book and how anyone who was friends with her were praised and kept in good regard. It showed that Dorothy is with us and would never discriminate against ourselves, even in a world that has shunned us. Friends of Dorothy means to me that gay people can live alongside everyone else and be happy. This is just a major example, and even in documentaries and series, you can see there's more influence than just Friends of Dorothy. In the documentary discussing the Compton riots, Screaming Queens,
Compton was fabulous. It was like Oz, something like the Wizard of Oz.
Showing us that for queer people, especially drag queens and trans peoples, Oz was a place to be weird and be queer because who cares? Gay spaces and gay bars were for us. Gay bars stand for what Oz means according to Dorothy, as she says in the 6th book.
But in Oz we are loved for ourselves alone, and for our kindness to one another, and for our good deeds.
One site I looked at while researching for this video was this website made by D. Mitchell, who also wrote this neat little book that I also used as my source. Isn't it cool? I love physical prints. His website has many illustrations and posters showing how big the Wizard of Oz imagery is, especially the movie. The Wizard of Oz is important to gay people, especially the LGBTQ community, because it's what we want. Some of us want to be among the Winkies or Quadlings. Some of them want to fight the Gnome King. Seriously, this man is a wuss, and I love it. Now, this is all fine and dandy, and yeah, it's obvious, but the final question remains to this. What does this mean for the future of The Wizard of Oz? The Wizard of Oz as a franchise is barely celebrated outside of the movie. You'll always hear of Dorothy, but never hear her lover Ozma, Glinda, but never Mombi or Scraps, and the first book, but never the others. It sucks that such an amazing franchise is forgotten, especially when it had a big impact in pop culture. However, there's one series or spinoff that broke through, one that was able to revive Oz in the public conscious, and one that may be even gayer, and that's the book, written by a fellow gay man / musical / movie with Ariana Grande ought to cause quite a stir in the Abbey, Wicked. Wicked is a musical you can't escape, and for good reason. It's one of the most beloved musicals in the modern day, and the fact that it's part of the Oz franchise is so heartwarming. We all know the story. It involves the untold tale of Elphaba, the Wicked Witch of the West, rebelling against the unjust society of Oz, and alongside Glinda, who learns to appreciate Elphaba and try to support her while fulfilling her destiny as being the Good Witch. But beyond the surface is something gayer, especially between the two female leads. Yes, I know Fiyero exists, but we're not talking about him. Throughout the musical, Glinda and Elphaba's relationship is one that resembles a rivals to lovers. Throughout the play, Elphaba's moody and reserved attitude clashes with Glinda's bubbly and outgoing attitude, and especially adds on how they have different roles in their society of Oz. Elphaba is a bastard daughter who is shunned for her green skin and left as a loner, only with her sister Nessa Rose. Glinda, on the other hand, is the popular girl and seen as the future of Oz. They both contrast heavily and somewhat hate each other, and this can be seen in the song, What Is This Feeling? What Is This Feeling, as the song not only tells that they hate each other, but also that they envy each other for something they represent. Elphaba hates Glinda because she is loved, praised, and seen as someone of value in this society. Elphaba envies and loathes the fact that Glinda has people that care about her. Glinda, on the other hand, sees how Elphaba cares about Nessa Rose and how she's kind of an authentic person instead of a fake model that Glinda is, whereas Elphaba loathes but envies the love Glinda receives. Glinda loathes but envies the fact that Elphaba gives love and keeps it real. Throughout the musical, especially after the dance scene, popular, and when they go to Emerald City, hey look, they have the glasses you're supposed to wear, like they said in the book, you're supposed to wear it. You see, they slowly bond, and they get what they want. Elphaba gets someone outside of her sister that cares for her and builds a friendship with, and Glinda is able to be more down-to-earth and friendly with someone instead of putting on a facade, shattering her fake one. However, who benefits the most from this is Elphaba, as she learns to become herself and embrace who she is and what she stands for. She knows she doesn't fit in the society of Oz. She knows she's an outsider, and she knows her goals have no place in the bigoted world of Wicked's Oz, which is why she defied gravity. Defying Gravity in itself is a gay anthem in my opinion, and one that even rivals its grandmother, Over the Rainbow. Defying Gravity is about acknowledging you don't fit in and owning it. Know that you can be yourself and live to be who you are regardless. It's no wonder that it was used in LA's Gay Pride event in 2007 as an anthem. Albeit Wikipedia and the Wicked Wiki said this, but no source that was hinted or linked. So if anyone has a copy of that nice CD, I would totally love it. I would totally like to collect. However, what I want to focus on is the duet with Glinda and Elphaba in Defying Gravity, where they sing,
I really hope you get it, and you won't live to regret it.
I hope you're happy in the end. I hope you're happy, my friend.
What this shows is they now have grown past their animosity and self-envy because they care about each other. Both see each other as wrong in what they believe is right in fixing the bad parts of Oz, but they still love each other. They stand juxtaposed to their fight and believes in fighting against the wizard, but even so, their bond has grown so much that even they can't be brought to hate each other, let alone just not love each other. Even with Fiyero in the mix, both try to still acknowledge each other's presence. Elphaba and Glinda simply can't say goodbye to each other that easy. At the end of Act 2, and during the part of the 1939 movie where Dorothy is locked away, Glinda visits Elphaba and talks to her. As the Osguards come to end the Wicked Witch and kill her, Glinda doesn't come to fight someone she loves, but rather say farewell, and this farewell is the song, For Good. For Good is the goodbye song of Wicked, and it shows the heartfelt, permanent parting of each other as if they're star-crossed lovers. The first lyric, I'm limited, in contrast to unlimited, on the surface, can mean Elphaba's time is almost up. However, it can also be a reflection on how Elphaba is now grounded and in reality towards someone she loves, Glinda. Unlimited is when she's flying solo, reckless, and not a care if anyone gets hurt. I'm limited is when she's with Glinda, knowing that with her she's better, and she has to watch out because she doesn't want to hurt the person she loves so much. Of course, you can't talk about the song without talking about the major message. Both of them acknowledging that their existences in each other's lives made theirs better. Lyrics like, I know who I am because of you, and so much of what is me is made of what I learned from you, shows the love and intimacy between each other, and how much they really cared about each other's lives, and how it's heartbreaking how it has to end like this, and it's so sweet. Now, you might challenge this, after all, Fiyero is there, but let's look back at the whole Oz franchise, the Tincrow and Ozma, and all the queer elements that make The Wizard of Oz, The Wizard of Oz. Wicked, especially Glinda and Elphaba's relationship, fits into a queer story, especially for lesbians who read The Wizard of Oz. Gelphie, the ship name, is a tragic story that shows the love of two women who were fated to meet, yet fated to part. About two women, one a prodigy, and one shunned for being different and not fitting into the molds of a proper Oztie, coming together and changing their lives forever, and even for as long as they live, they will never forget how much they meant to each other, and I love this so much. Despite being a spin-off and a revisionist story of the OG books, Wicked as a queer story and part of the Wizard of Oz stories is not only cemented its place in the Wizard of Oz history, but in the place of the Wizard of Oz's gay history. in 2024, where there's so many franchises around and so many rushing to be the one for the gays, it's hard to realize that maybe the real gay franchise has been under our nose for the longest. The Wizard of Oz being in public domain, being considered the first American fantasy tale, and also not being consistent as others means it's easy for it to be forgotten in new times. But when people talk about how Star Wars, D&D, or other franchises made for the gays, I faint to see Wizard of Oz brought up, and if so, it's only the movie. The Oz franchise is one that is barely loved in queer spaces, especially my generation and above. The Wizard of Oz is more than the movie, more than Wicked. It's a beautiful gay franchise that should be celebrated. The Wizard of Oz is the gay franchise. It's for all the gays who felt ostracized and pushed out of society and deemed unworthy. Oz is the place for stories with Ozma, Tincrow, Gelphie, TikTok, and all the friends over the rainbow. At least that's what my mom taught me. You might wonder, how did I get into Oz? How did I get into this franchise? It's thanks to my mom. Growing up, my favorite movie to watch with my mom was The Wizard of Oz, and it was hers with her family. She loved the movie, she always talked about it, and she always loved everything Wizard of Oz. She always showed me how there were books too, and how I read the books, and now I'm rereading them again, and it was just fun. I got to bond with her over The Wizard of Oz. In fact, this year I took her to see Wicked for Three Kings Day as a gift, and it was really fun. So yeah, of course The Wizard of Oz is important to me. It's something that I bond with my mom, and I hope she's watching this. Mom, thank you for introducing me to one of my favorite niche franchises of all time. I hope you now realize how really gay it is and how really amazing it was on my development, so I cannot thank you enough for it. So yeah, this video essay is way more personal than I imagined. Everyone say hi to my mom, please. In a world where there's so many rushing to be the one for the gays, maybe the ones for the gays isn't one that needs multi-billion-dollar movies or complete Disney Plus series. It can just be one that you can simply find over the rainbow. Before this video ends, I want to say thank you so much to Sally Pryde Drag. Sally is such an awesome trans YouTuber. She does a lot of cool videos. I like her transphobe or not series. I think it's really cool. I kind of like the investigation of such, kind of like, you know, homophobe or not. So definitely check her out. Her Wizard of Oz video was one that also inspired me, so definitely please check her out. And this video couldn't have been amazing without her. She made these cute graphics. Thank you. Please subscribe to her. Everyone must subscribe to her. Yes, even my mom. But yes, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe to both of us. Make sure to like and comment too. Make sure to link and share. Make sure to read the Oz book since it's in public domain and you can read it for free online or even find it in a public library because they're really common. Just make sure to do everything for us because we're really awesome and The Wizard of Oz is really awesome. And man, make sure to buy tickets for Wicked when it comes out in theaters. I know the Sonic movie 3 is coming out also, but I don't know. Thank you so much for watching. I've been wanting to make this video for so long, so thank you.